So let's turn to the Super Bowl. 41 points to 33 win for the Philadelphia Eagles over the New England Patriots. It was a modern classic. Eagles quarterback Nick Foles delivered in a big way. Tom Brady did throw the most yards ever in a Super Bowl, even if his trick play catch didn't quite come off.
Meanwhile, 3rd down and 5 here. And now you got to flip back here to Danny Amendola, who throws, and it's Brady who can't pull it in.
Is just going to hand off and then ignore, he's not doing anything, and there he goes. And immediately Chris Long knew he was in trouble, and Brady with the bad hand and no tape.
And they're going to snap it, and it's Trey Burton who throws, caught. Foles, touchdown.
And watch all the action. Foles is going to sneak over here. Direct snap. Everybody comes up. And here we go. What a play call by Doug Peterson. This play call has a chance to be remembered as one of the all-time greats. Just going for it.
Yeah, Kevin Cullen from the Boston Globe is on the line. Reliving the pain, Kevin.
I don't know, Joe. Did you see the piece that I wrote that's going to be in the Globe today? Or actually, it's going to be in the paper tomorrow, but it's going to be online. I was extremely magnanimous, and I began by my column by running a quote from Donald Trump in 2016, and that quote is, "We're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning." And as I said, let the pigs fly. Let hell freeze over, and whatever you do, pass me the Jameson and the Valium, because it's true. For once, I agree with Donald Trump. We got tired of winning.
This has been
the only way I can explain my sort of serene and catatonic response. And I gotta be totally honest with you. My reaction: I was watching the game with the great Rosie Rosenthal, who was a Boston Globe reporter in the 70s and then went to Philadelphia and became the editor of the Philadelphia Inquirer. We're down here in Virginia helping some female veterans of war get to their writing and all that kind of stuff. And Rosie turned to me during the game and said, "Can't you let Philly win one?" And you know what? It turned out to be very easy. We let them win one. And you know what? You said it. They deserved it. They absolutely deserved the win. The Eagles did what they had to do. Nick Foles had to be great, and he was great.
So, Kevin, talk to us about the nature of this game. Nobody quite expected both offences to do so well. Nobody was expecting a 41-33 type scoreline here.
I would say that I did. It's not that I didn't expect the offenses to do so well. I just expected the defenses to play a little better. Right from the get-go, there was some controversy. I didn't even notice it in watching the game. I only found out after the game that Bill Belichick benched Malcolm Butler, who was the hero of the Super Bowl win over the Seattle Seahawks, when he stepped in front of perhaps the stupidest call ever made by Pete Carroll or any coach in Super Bowl history when they threw that slant pass a few years ago. Malcolm Butler is a pretty good cover corner, and at the last minute, I guess, Belichick decided to go with Eric Rowe over Malcolm Butler. And I think a lot of Patriots fans today are wondering, that was a game, we saw at the very end, that the turnover really killed the Patriots' chance to go march down the field and go ahead. Could Malcolm Butler have produced a turnover, a takeaway that would have changed? We'll never know that. But the reality is the defenses on both sides were extremely porous. Joe, there was one punt in that game. One punt by the Eagles. So it was. I actually thought, is scintillating and as crazy last year's comeback against the Atlanta Falcons was. This is the most entertaining Super Bowl, certainly, that I've watched that involved the Patriots, and perhaps the most entertaining one I've ever seen. It was just a good football game. It went up and down the field. If you had closed your eyes and just listened, you would have thought it was Alabama and Georgia playing for the SEC title. It was just amazing.
Because I mentioned at the top, Tom Brady threw the most yards ever in a Super Bowl. Unfortunately for him, perhaps, the lingering image, because it's almost iconic instantly, that people may have, is the trick play and him just fumbling that catch.
Absolutely. And, that's you could say the difference in the game is that the Eagles quarterback who's a better receiver than Tom Brady. But, it's funny because millions of Patriots fans, my reaction to that, Joe, was not original. Millions of Patriots fans drifted back to that when they lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl the last time. If you recall, there were a number of drops, particularly a crucial one by Wes Welker. And when Gisele Bündchen, the Brazilian supermodel who was married to Tom Brady, was leaving the stadium, some guy yelled out, I don't know, something about your husband's a bum or something to that effect. And Gisele yelled back, he can't throw it and catch it at the same time. And you know what? I watched that play last night and I said, hey, Gisele was right.
So Brady's performance is exceptional. I mean, he is not the guy to blame here.
No, I mean, if you're going to place any blame, first of all, I'm always one. I always look at the glass being half full. So I'm more prepared today to give credit to Doug Peterson and his aggressive game calling. I mean, I think there were several. It's not 1, 2, 3. There were probably about 5 or 6 plays that Peterson. You could start with the throw to Foles for the touchdown.
Yeah, just before halftime.
I was really struck, Joe, and I'd have to go back and look at the time, but I want to say there was 5 minutes and change, and it was 4th down, and the Eagles could have kicked the field goal. But you know what? Doug Peterson's sitting there and saying, you know what? I can't put myself in a position that Tom Brady marches down the field and kicks, and all he has to do is set up a field goal to beat us. We're not going to do that. So he went for it on 4th down. And they just got it. Ertz just got and it was a gutsy call. And I don't know if Belichick makes that call. So my idea, instead of assigning blame, and there's loads of blame to go around in any loss, but I would just say I would tip my cap to the Eagles and particularly to Peterson. He played like this all year. He's been aggressive when other teams might be a little more conservative and just go with the punt or whatever. And I think that was if I had to pick one play, that was when they went for on 4th down and 1 yard to go, and it would have been much more conservative to kick the ball. He went for it, and they won the game as a result.
And that attitude of Doug Peterson's and the Eagles at large is often so rare when you're talking about the Patriots, because everybody knows they will come back strong, and there is almost an element of stage fright. And maybe if we just sit here tight and hang on for dear life, they might not catch us, as opposed to let's be ambitious and let's kick on and let's win the game ourselves, as opposed to hoping they won't catch us. And that's maybe a crucial thing when it comes to the Patriots. I mean, the other really interesting subplot here is Foles rather. So, like Carson Wentz gets injured. And everybody's thinking disastrous, and now Foles has delivered in a big way. So what for Foles now? What do Philadelphia do with Wentz and Foles in their ranks?
That's a good question. I winning that Super Bowl is not going to jump Foles ahead of Wentz in the talent pool, presuming Wentz comes back fully recovered from his injury. And I think there were a number of quotes by Eagles players after the game. It's probably a little too soon now to address that, but just because he won this iconic game, Nick Foles is not a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. But I think that was one of the greatest performances by a guy that would be a backup quarterback in the history of football. It's very interesting to see him after the game. He's one of these Christian guys, and sometimes I can be dismissive of Christian guys because I'm basically a heretic, and that's what I am. But anyway, he just seemed absolutely at peace with himself. He was holding his daughter. He had the protective earmuffs on the little girl. And Nick Foles just, what a lot of these Christian guys say, all the credit goes to Jesus, my Savior, and all that stuff. But it really mattered in this case, because I got the sense from a guy like Nick Foles, if he lost the game, he would have picked up his daughter with exactly the same demeanor as he picked her up after he won and was announced. It was, proclaimed the MVP of the Super Bowl. The guy just seems to have an even keel, and that's exactly what he needed to go up again. He didn't strike me as a guy who sat there and say, "Oh my God, I'm going up against Tom Brady." He was a guy that says, "I'm going to go out and do the best I can," and he was terrific. And again, we talked about this last time, Joe, going over the top. Frankly, Nick Foles was better going downfield and going over the top than Tom Brady was. As good as Brady was, Foles was better in that facet of the game.
I have a very rigid time clock every Super Bowl year, in that precisely about 10 minutes into the third quarter, my body says, no, you are done, we are shutting this down, and you ain't hanging on. So I tend to have to watch these things back in the morning. I haven't had a chance to watch the fourth quarter back this morning. Did I read Tom Brady didn't shake Foles' hand, that he took off? That's quite unusual.
I'm not absolutely sure, but I actually said to my buddy Rosie when I was watching, I said, it looks like Brady just ran off the field. Or I know for a fact, I did not see it on television. I saw Bill Belichick go through it looked like a scrum to get to Doug Peterson, and they embraced. And they actually hugged each other for what seemed like quite a while, and they spoke to each other. But the image I saw of Brady was him running off the field, and I certainly didn't see a televised image of him congratulating Foles, which in some respect I think is bad form. But I also think it shows how upset Brady was.
Right.
And his press conference, he was his usual self. He was obviously dejected, but he was pretty classy, and he said all the right things about the Eagles. Although I don't recall hearing. I didn't hear his full, but I didn't hear any fulsome praise for Foles. But maybe I just missed that.
Okay, I'm sure that'll all emerge in the next few days, because I saw Gronkowski did flirt with the idea of retirement, or certainly didn't say it wasn't a possibility.
Right.
What about Brady?
No way.
No chance.
He's made it clear. That's why Jimmy Garoppolo was traded to the 49ers. No, Brady has made it very clear that he wants to play into his mid-40s. And actually, I think he basically wants to play as long as he's good and as long as he can do it. And I think it's more complicated in the sense that this is now tied up into his post-career, which is the TB12 health method and all that stuff that you and I have talked about with Alex Guerrero. And it's almost, the two things are so intertwined. For Tom's brand to maximize his potential, at least in his view, he has to be the oldest serving quarterback in the history of the NFL. Okay. Let's face it, Joe. He's just, at 40 years of age, he just put up, he was the MVP. And I think everybody would agree, maybe if Carson Wentz did not go down with injury, it would have been gone to Carson Wentz, but that ain't what happened. So it's hard to argue that Brady isn't at the top of his game, that he is one or two of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, and there's no reason. Put it this way, Joe, I always ask, whenever we talk about anything, I always say, what do the bookies say? And the bookies already have established the Patriots as the favorite to win the Super Bowl next year.
Okay.
So that says a lot about Tom Brady.
It does, and potentially answers.
Joe, you like Irish comparisons, right?
Sure, shoot.
You like Irish comparisons?
Yeah, let's have them.
I was thinking about this today about you, because you asked, when I heard from your associates earlier today, they were saying, they asked if I was like, oh, I know I'm just dejected or down. I don't feel like that at all, and I think it's a combination of there's been 8 Super Bowls here for the Patriots, and you know what? You do take it for granted after a while, and you do become magnanimous in victory and all that. The Eagles could win, and I would compare it to. I wasn't in Dublin for the football final last September, but I had several friends who were, and they were Dubs. And I said, "What was the buzz like after?" And they said, we were in a pub down in Bagger Street, and there were a number of Mayo guys there, and we kind of felt bad for them. That, you know what, it would have been okay. We could have done with losing to Mayo because they are just so good and they are always so close. It wouldn't have killed us, as my friend Ado Brown put it. It wouldn't have killed us to lose one to them.
Yeah, I guess.
And I think that's a very simple. I don't know how widespread that is. I don't, but I certainly never heard that from anybody in Kerry saying anything like that. But I really do think there is that sort of magnanimity in a lot of Patriots fans that if they had to lose, they lost. They didn't lose on a fluke play. They didn't lose on a cheap call. They lost to a team that took it to the Patriots and beat them at their own game by being aggressive and by having a trick play that they hadn't showed before and surprising the heck out of the defense. And all you can do is tip your hat to it. And the other thing, Joe, that I love, they kept showing this old guy in the stands in one of the boxes. His name was Phil Banner, and the 99 years old Eagles fan. And so this morning I got up really early at 6 o'clock and I looked up, who the hell is Phil Banner? Turns out that Phil Banner was born in Philadelphia, and when he was 4 years old, his mother died. His dad couldn't cope with it, so he put Phil and his little sister Rose into basically a foster home or an orphanage in the Germantown section of Philly. And when Phil was 8 years old, his sister died, so he was alone. And in 1933, when the Eagles played their first game, Phil Banner was there. He was a lifelong Eagles fan, never saw them, obviously saw them win a championship, but before the Super Bowl era. And Phil Banner couldn't go to any Eagles games through most of the 40s and the early 50s because he was serving his country in war. And this is a guy who, came back from war, started a family, raised some kids. His daughter Faith died when she was 44 years old from cancer. His other got very wealthy with her husband, and they donated $55 million to the University of Pennsylvania Cancer Center in Philadelphia. And last April, Phil Banner's wife, the great Pearl, girl who grew up in Philly, she died at 89 after 65 years of marriage, and she didn't get to see this championship. But Phil did. And you know what? I'm not going to sit here and begrudge a great American like Phil Banner the opportunity to relish this. And as I said in my column today, enjoy the ride, Mr. Banner. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your wonderful family.
Wow. And final point, I presume the scenes in Philadelphia have been as amazing as I would expect, given a 58-year wait?
Of course, I haven't really seen much of it, but I hope they're celebrating well. Apparently, they saved the Crisco for the fried chicken because they're not putting it on the poles now.
They greased the poles last game out, yeah.
They did last time, but it didn't work. Those lunatics were able to scramble up them anyway. But, like I said, I just don't begrudge people that. It's great. The next time I see my buddies, the kids that I went to Trinity College with, the Philly boys, those lunatics, we're going to be able to have a shared experience that in our 58 years we never had. We both were there when our teams won the Super Bowl. And in fact, we're going to Ireland next year, the four of us, for a reunion. As I would tell all the pubs at the back of Trinity Gate, from Kennedy's on down to the Lincoln Inn, lock the doors.
We might try and wrestle you in here for half an hour if you don't mind. Kevin Cullen from the Boston Globe, thank you.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that latest offering from Off the Ball. If you want to subscribe, and you should, check out just up here. All our latest stuff is just down here. Generally, knock yourself out.